Hey guys, sorry, I'm getting too late. I was petting the dog in the living room and I missed my timer. But anyway, uh, hope things are good. There's been a lot of stuff on my mind lately. Figure out where to start. I guess I'll just start with what's on my mind. I don't know what day it was. I think I found out Saturday. This little Christian school that I used to work at when I was still living in Washington. One of the students there, apparently he got grounded. His folks grounded him, so he got a gun and loaded it and shot him in the head. Both his parents, but he was dumb enough to use a .22, so his parents are still alive. And so it's a Christian school. So the first comment I read in the online newspaper was by some self-proclaimed heathen talking about how, well, I guess this takes the wind out of the argument that school shootings happen because you don't allow prayer in schools. And later on that comment was deleted, but still he had a point. And I was asking God about it. I mean, all these questions that go along with that. Well, why'd this happen? What can we do now? What can we change? Can anything be changed? How can we prevent this? And just all those questions you just get plagued with after something like that. And with me personally, he just went off on me. Not in a bad way, just I was asking all these questions. How can we prevent this? And how can we stop this from happening? How could we have noticed this sooner? We. And he gave me quite a bit, but I edited it down for relevance sake. But one thing about this Christian school, man, I loved being there. A lot of my time there, it really shaped me into, it got me started on the path to where I am now. And I owe that school a lot because they put a lot of faith in me. And I remember when I was still living up there was a couple different guys went up there and ministered, and I got to use I talked the school administrator into using the gymnasium for one of these little home meetings, for a bigger home meeting. And it was Alan Taylor. I think he's got some stuff on ictus.net. And he was talking about, basically just praying in tongues, the ministry of the Holy Spirit, and just giving God a personality, which you don't see much in church. And then the administrator, about I don't even think a week later, I went to work there, and then she pulled me into her office. She said, we got to talk about some stuff here. And evidently, some of the people in that meeting, well, this Christian school is real tight with a church was real tight with a church that was right across the street. And they would share facilities whenever they needed to. The school would have huge receptions or whatever there at the church, and the church would have stuff at the school, like use the playground or whatever. So they were real tight. They had a good network, and quite a few people from the school went to that church, including me. And I ended up, that was the church I kind of got dismissed from once I found the Holy Spirit. But some of these people that were in Alan Taylor's meeting up in Washington, they went back to that church and had to sit down with the pastor to try and discuss some of the questions. I guess they weren't really concerns, but the stuff Alan was saying did raise a lot of valid questions for people that hadn't heard about it. I mean, it was just basically praying in tongues, stuff like that, just getting to know God, having a relationship with Him. But that was breaking new ground for some of those people. And then, so after the pastor got done talking with these people, he called up the administrator for the school and expressed his concerns and was talking about breaking off their relationship between the school and the church. So then the administrator had a powwow with me. I don't think it was a whole lot later that I ended up moving down to Tulsa. But that Christian school houses a lot of different denominations. So, I mean, I'm assuming for income's sake, they kind of just look for common ground doctrinally. And, well, that's pretty much where God picks this up on what He was telling me. How much can I truly do on their behalf, them as the school, if they aren't in agreement about who I am and what I want to do among them? Their common ground is that Jesus paved the way for their salvation, but it ends at that. Imagine what I could do not only in that school, but in the entire town if everyone in that place would just set aside their doctrinal differences and embrace the simplicity that's in my word. Has anyone seen the strength that flows through such unity? Rarely. So don't give up, son. I've custom designed a path for you to bring out everything I've ever shown you and everything I've ever planted and instilled in you. Stop looking at what sounds good or feels good today or next week. Focus on the people that won't know me unless you step up and fulfill the things I've given you. How can you put a price on those souls? Do you think I won't bring that up with you when you're face to face with Jesus? Do you think then that it would have been worth the sacrifices now? Stop with your temporal thinking, son. It's going to kill you. Think of the people I've put into your sphere of influence. Just people I see at work or, just on a common basis several times a week. Do you think it was by chance that I put them in your sphere of influence? Do you think that you get along so well by happenstance? You think you're cut from the same cloth of the soul, and that's partially true. Imagine if they were cut with the cloth of my spirit. Do you think there's a limit to what you could do once they truly embrace me and ground my truth in their own hearts? What you could do, what he was saying was implying that, like, as a group, not just me. Do you think I don't want that even worse than you do? I put you in that place in the middle of them because I know you can be their city on a hill. Bible reference. I know you have it in you to draw them to me the way no one else can, but I need you to continue developing the avenues you've given me in yourself. How else can I reach them otherwise? Think about it, son, and count the cost. Keep thinking in light of my eternity, because that's the only way to truly keep your thoughts balanced. And I've been mulling that over for a few days now, I guess. Just, I don't know how many times I've read it and reread it and reread it. And then revised it and read it some more. But then I just started thinking how frustrated, I guess, I am with church. And let's get this out of the way real quick. I mentioned a few weeks ago, I'm not doing these broadcasts for church people. And the way God said it to me was basically, I'm doing these for the people that aren't going to watch them. like some family, like my friends at work, but they know about them. And if God has something to draw those people to introduce himself to them with, that's all he needs. That he's got something to work with to get to them. And that's what I'm trying to develop through these broadcasts. I'm trying to establish freedom. Just finding finding our own independence with God and being comfortable with who God made us. Not trying to listen to these people in church that are just trying to make you like them. And man, that was something I struggled with for a long time. Trying to be like a church person. And for some reason I didn't really have any good friends because I wasn't even myself. But I was finally able to learn how to really power through that. And what I want to do now is just encourage other people to do the same thing. Man, if we're not trying to conform to church, we're trying to conform to Jesus. Is that not right? And that's where there's freedom. So with these, man, I'm just trying to give God something to work with to reach these people that probably aren't ever going to watch these. But, you know, if they're out there and these friends of mine, these family members can watch it without, you know, just without it having a church feel, they can just set it up on their phone when they're in their bedroom loading up a bowl of weed and then just listen to me run off the mouth for a half hour while they get high. I don't see a problem with that. If God is trying to get to them and they're checking it out. But that being said, one thing that has really frustrated me about church is that there seems to be like this unspoken dress code, and you have to act a certain way and say certain things. And like this last Sunday morning, one of the guy that had the early service, we got an early service and then a second service where everybody shows up just to get ministered to and avoid the teaching. But during the early service, the guy that was speaking, he was just talking about how important worship is, and then he just told everybody to just spend 5 or 10 minutes worshiping, and then all of a sudden you see these arms just start going up like this, and I look around, it's like a bunch of satellite dishes. You know? I mean, how many people there are doing it because other people are doing it? But it's not them. I tried that once, and I was so busy being self-conscious, I didn't even get any worshiping done. So, man, be yourself. If you just want to sit there with your arms crossed, shut your eyes and chat with God, there ain't nothing wrong with that. And if anybody tells you there is, that says a little something about their relationship with God. Anyway, Bernard, you'd be very proud of me. I found a bunch of verses, I believe, 5. We'll see how many I can actually get to. But I've been thinking about James, the book of James, a lot of the morning, and then I realized I was going to listen to it when I was at work, and I realized I did not have it on my phone. I had Romans, Galatians, and Colossians. So I was listening to Colossians for the first couple hours, and then I switched over to Galatians for the last hour and a half, 2 hours. And I kept listening to them, and especially Galatians, man. Paul's just ripping these people a new one because they're starting to have their ears tickled by the Judaizers and get swept away with them. And then I just started thinking about all the likenesses between the Judaizers after Christianity had been established. And, you know, you compare the Judaizers with Jewish Christians, or I guess primarily Jewish Christians, but really any. And then regular ho-hum Sunday morning Christians now with people that are trying to establish a relationship with God, people that are striving to know God better. I think there's some uncomfortable similarities there. But before I start reading the Bible, when I like I said, I didn't get a chance to go through James when I was at work, so I just skimmed through it once when I got home, and kept thinking about this buddy of mine at work that he does not look like a church person at all. But he was, I think he was baptized Mormon, and he tried a couple different spiritual avenues. I don't know how familiar he was with Christianity, but man, I still haven't been able to get it out of my head. The reason he doesn't go to church is because of church people, because they'll judge him. You don't see these big ear gauges in church, or dreadlocks, or tattoos, like the arm sleeve kind, or the bullnose ring. You don't see that in church, and a lot of church people will fight to keep it that way, regardless of this person's relationship with God. And man, I would fight that tooth and nail. But if you'll give me a little artistic liberty with the interpretation, James 2, 1 through 4. My brethren, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with partiality. For if there should come into your assembly a family, upper middle class, with a nice SUV, maybe a Lexus or an Audi or a Mercedes, CX-9, no, Mazda 9, yeah. Anyway, one of those big soccer mom crossover sport utility vehicles where you can tell they're pretty comfortable. And, they come bouncing into church all excited and enthusiastic to get turned their life around back to God and, start living right again. And you see the impressionable gleam in their eye. So you start treating them right, put them on the board, and talk about how important it is to tithe. But then some dude in scummy clothes, or maybe with ear gauges, tattoos, piercings, keep him in the back row so he doesn't scare off the rich, impressionable purists of church. Have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? James said it, not me. I just back him up on it. And focusing on that, there's too many churches like that. Sometimes even mine. It doesn't come from the pulpit. It just comes from the people that show up on Sundays to feel better about all the crap they did during the week. And I even got flack for it for my hat. I mean, so it's not about keeping the law or about how good you look. I go to church in jeans that are just worn out. They got holes in the knees, and I didn't buy them that way. I earned the holes in the knees doing actual work. And, people probably think, whatever. Doesn't matter what they think, because, well, I'll try to be nice. But we as a church have to grow past that into like a state of unity where the common ground is God and the simplicity that's His Word. That's where we have to start moving towards as a group, so we can find these 8th graders, these 14-year-olds that are just off the edge. And all it takes is getting in trouble and getting grounded for them to shoot up their folks in the head. Man, how much different could that have been if people in that were in that kid's sphere of influence, if they could have listened to God and had the stones to act on it? Begs the question, man. I would like to know the answer. So, it's about a relationship with God, not meeting requirements. Anyway, Galatians 3, my second reference, Bernard. This only I want to learn from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, are you now being made perfect by the flesh? Are we supposed to go to bed by 10 because the devil comes out at 10:01 at night when the sun sets? Can we not have a drink of alcohol with friends where they go to unwind and feel safe and vent, just so we can inject a little bit of God into them? Are we not supposed to be around people that just curse like sailors because that's the language they know, that's what they're comfortable with, that's all they know? Are we not supposed to be around that because it offends God? Man, I get worked up talking about this stuff. It ain't about rules, man. It's about asking God just to putting yourself in a position for God to be able to use you to reach these people. Man, for him to be able to trust you with these people, to be a steward of their soul, of their emotions, while he works towards a harvest of their heart. Galatians 5, 1 and 2 and 4. I skipped 3 because it wasn't really relevant for the context, but it's in there, trust me. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage, like being in bed by 10 and not having any alcohol, and not being able to be around people that get high and curse and whatever else. Indeed, I, Paul, or Pete in this case, say to you that if you become circumcised, or if you start focusing on the law instead of on God, on actions, on being obedient to people, and how they say you should live, Christ will profit you nothing. You have become estranged from Christ, you who attempt to be justified by law. You've fallen from grace. As you focus on the tithe, instead of on pushing this message forward to people that haven't heard it yet. Zing! And Galatians 6, 1 and 2. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself also, lest you be tempted. I don't expect some recovering alcoholic to tag along to the bar with their coworkers to get them saved. That's stupid, and that's playing with fire. Man, I don't have a problem with alcohol addiction. I'm cautious. I listen to God. Sometimes he says no, and I trust that there's a good reason for it. But for me personally, man, you got to go where they're at. If they're at the bar, we ain't going to stand outside with pickets and waiting for them. That ain't going to get the message done. Considering yourself also lest you be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. So, let's not judge people just because their approach is a little more unorthodox, or it's not what we've seen in church, or it's not what we've read in these churchy books by pastors that get gold dust in their church on Sundays. Man, we just got to get to the point where we know it's God that's shaping us into who we are. Because a lot of times, just at least the way church is now, we're probably not going to fit in, especially if our heart's toward the unsaved. Man, if we're trying to reach the burnouts and the people that just hate church for whatever reason, there's it might feel like a square peg in a round hole whenever you gather around Sunday morning Christians. And it's not supposed to be like that. There's Carrie interns at this history museum for her master's degree, And every month they have this potluck, like the second Monday of the month, I think. So in this case, ours was last night, and we've been going for I don't know, 3 months now, I think. And the first time I wasn't so sure about it because I was thinking it was just going to be a bunch of old people, and it was. But man, I have so much fun with them. And there's this one lady there. I just by chance I ended up standing in line with her when we were waiting in line to go through this potluck dinner. If you don't know what potluck is, it's amazing. All these people just bring their own meal, and then we all just share, and it's awesome. Anyway, I got to hang out and chat with this chick, and she knew somebody, like a pretty prosperous Christian. He's got, I think it's a nationwide chain of businesses. He's, I don't know if he's friends with this lady's son or like somehow related by marriage or something. Anyway, she was telling somebody else about this prosperous Christian, and he spoke at Carrie's graduation from Oral Roberts University. And what he had to say, man, I really enjoyed it. So, I've enjoyed keeping up with him. I mean, not chatting with him, but just seeing what he's doing. Because I imagine he's got a lot of groupies who just want his money to talk about how important God is to him. Zing. But I overheard her telling somebody else about it. So I asked her what was going on, and then she filled me in, and then we just started chatting. And then I guess I just found a place in her heart. So every time I see her now, we get a big hug and just chat. And she found out, I guess last weekend, that I've been doing these broadcasts, and I don't really advertise it. It's me doing it. I'd feel kind of arrogant just going around telling everybody to listen to me. So that's not my thing. But somehow she found out, and I walked over near where she was sitting so I could get a drink of tea. And then she's like, Pete, you have to come over here. And then she had our hug, and then she's like, you have to tell me what you're doing. It's like, what? She's like, oh, well, I heard you were doing something with the internet or something. And at that point, I don't really know what to say, so I just kind of told her I was doing these broadcasts. I didn't really know how to summarize it briefly. So I just told her I'd do, I just get on Tuesday afternoons and talk for a little while. And she's like, well, before you leave, you have to give me the website and the YouTube channel. And I really want to hear that. So, so I did. And, I wasn't real sure because I'm more surprised when people like what I have to say, because I try to be a little more abrasive and go between the eyes kind of thing. So I gave her this piece of paper, and then she went home, and Carrie and I were there talking to the director of this history museum. And I was just thinking, man, that lady's probably never going to want to talk to me again. She's going to think I'm some heretic, and so much for our hugs and all that. And then so Carrie and I were talking to the museum director, and the director's like, oh man, she's actually a really cool lady. There's a lot more to her than you would think. Did you know she ministers at prisons? I said, what? No. I mean, she just seems like, man, I would have thought she's just like one of those kindly Baptist moms, like the matriarch of the church kind of thing, So, I was just baffled. And then the museum director was like, well, yeah, just last week or last weekend, she got a chance to sit down and talk with some guy that's going to be executed this week. Huh, no wonder we get along so well. But I don't even know where I was going with that. I was just enjoying that. I guess people aren't always how you perceive them. And just because I referenced it, I guess we can go through Colossians 2:11 through 23, and then I will have read the entire Bible. Bernard. In him you were also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, by grace, spiritual laws, following God instead of following people, tablets of flesh instead of tablets of heart, or tablets of flesh instead of tablets of stone, etc. By putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism, in which you were also raised with him through faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he's made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. This one's important, 14. Having wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. And, that's obviously not the entire passage I was going to read, but focusing on that for a second, wiped out the handwriting of requirements. So, I don't know if you want to call them modern-day Judaizers or whatever, if they want to come through talking about making promises that God didn't make, or talking about how you can only please God through things you do instead of having a relationship with him and getting to know him, and then wanting to do things that impact his heart instead of having to. 15. Having disarmed principalities and powers, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. So, I really like 16 to 23. I made it all bold when I printed it off. So, let no one judge you in food or drink, whether it's fermented or not, mind you, or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths. If I want to go to my buddy's Halloween party, I ain't going to let a church person stop me. I'm not all of a sudden going to become some Satanist and set up a pentagram of candles on the floor and then start putting black cats over it and sacrificing them and smearing myself in their blood. What is the matter with people that think I'm going to do that? Anyway, new moons of Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. I would take God with me to that Halloween party if I wanted to go. Some of those people I think are just more annoying when they get drunk, though, and that's why I haven't gone to my buddy's Halloween party. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels. Not really relevant to what we're saying, but something to be aware of. Intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head. Emphasis on having a relationship with the Trinity, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the increase that's from God. Therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles of this world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourself to regulations, like being in bed by 10, like not having any alcohol, like not being able to do this or this or this? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which all concern things which perish with the using, according to the commandments and doctrines of men. These things indeed have an appearance of wisdom and self-imposed religion, false humility and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. A lot of people can talk about how they don't do all this stuff and it's honoring to God, and then, behind closed doors, God only knows what they do. But haven't we all been guilty of that at some point? Mercy on all of us. Anyway, man, I could have pulled up that part where Paul was tearing the Corinthians about, is everybody an eye, is everybody a foot, blah, blah, blah. My approach to ministry is not the same as other people's. And I think it's entirely unrealistic for somebody to expect my approach to ministry to be the same as theirs, or for me to expect anybody else's approach to ministry to be the same as mine. Is the end result people getting to know God, Is God being glorified purely? Not the whole fake gold dusting, quarters on the wall, gem pockets, all that crap. That's not really God being glorified. Is God able to express his heart? And does God get joy out of what we're doing? Whether we agree with the methods or not. That's really what we have to ask ourselves. We got to be comfortable with how we're doing it. Man, God put this stuff in my heart a long time ago, and I didn't know how to walk it out because I thought I was supposed to be a church person. And then finally I gave them an obscene gesture and started doing my own thing, just me and God. Maybe that was not the most godly thing to do, but we're all learning, aren't we? But, man, follow your passion and keep God involved in it. How much more does he need? So, love you guys. Hope things are good, and see you next week.